Oh, but by the way, Cyd, Ray Austin says hello and sends his love.
Well, that's nice. Is that tonight he said that?
Yeah. He was hoping to join us, but he can't for various reasons. But when we do our new Avengers one, he's hoping to perhaps to join us, just a quick say hello, and then he'll sort of pop out again. So that'd be quite.
Well, that's nice of him.
He's appeared at quite a few of my events. He'll pop up and say hello to somebody who hasn't seen him for a while. So
yes, yeah. Well, it is a while. The last time we saw him was at the 50th anniversary.
Oh yes, yeah.
Which is 10 years now, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't believe it's now 60 years since it all began.
Yeah.
Did you?
I don't think either Ray nor I worked on the first ones. Well, yeah, I know I didn't. I don't think he did.
No, I think Ray started on the black and white down the rig ones.
Yeah, that would be it.
But yeah, 61. It obviously started with Ian Hendry, and obviously it's because did you see the 60th virtual event that they did? They did one on.
No, I didn't. I missed that.
Yeah, that was quite good. I think there's maybe some clips of it on YouTube somewhere. So if I can find it, I'll send it to you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Quite good. But I went to the Chichester one in 2011, and that, of course, was a fantastic experience.
Yes.
So it was very hot, I seem to remember, and that was sort of June.
Yeah, it was quite warm. Yeah.
No, that's my biggest memory of it. It's just it sticks out as being quite hot.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that were there that aren't around anymore.
Yeah, it is frightening, really, isn't it? Sort of how the numbers have dropped.
Yeah, we're all slowly shuffling off the end of the perch.
Well, we all are, aren't we? Unfortunately.
Yes.
No matter what age you are, it's all meaningless and pointless if you think about it, but we won't go there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know whether because they were keeping the archive at Chichester, weren't they?
I think they were, yeah. I think some of, because obviously Avengers obviously released all over the world on DVD, and I think some of the Australian releases actually used some footage from Chichester. So they bought the rights to, but it's never appeared in the UK versions at all, which I'm not sure why.
No. Well, I know they were worried about copyright on some of the things.
Yeah.
Because there was a clip of film that was shown, and I asked if I could get a copy, and there was a lot of, I'm not sure if we can because we've had problems with the copyright. And then a little while later, it came out on YouTube. Oh, right. So I told Adam Locks, who was one of the organisers, he didn't know anything about it. I said, if you're worried about copyright, it's actually out now on YouTube.
Yeah. Is that the Patrick McNee hosted documentary that they showed? Was it that or something else you think?
I can't remember now. It was one they put together with bits and pieces. But some of the bits that they'd used, they didn't have clearance for, so they were worried about releasing it.
Yeah. Because I remember they showed that an extract of a documentary they did with Patrick. It must have been sort of in the early 90s, and for some reason it had been released. And I think they said it at the event was going to be the only time for this small part of it. I'd love to know the reasons why that came out, because you would think it's relatively straightforward,
Yes. Yeah, you would.
So, but yeah, but maybe one day we'll see it.
Yeah.
So I think most people have logged on pretty much. I'll just give a couple of minutes to log on, just in case there's anybody else that's still trying to get on. I think we've got most people. Right, definitely waiting for at least one more. There's one more name there I'm not seeing. Still about a minute to go.
Yeah. I think my watch is fast.
Okay, so I think we're still a couple light. To everybody that's just joined us, just want to say welcome to this watch along of the Avengers episode, Murdersville. If it wants, we're just going to take a couple minutes to wait for a few other people to join us. If you just want to use that time just to get your DVD copies of the episode ready, we're going to freeze frame on the Avengers in colour title card, and then I'll do a countdown from 5 and we'll all press play at the same time. So if you just want to do that,
Can you get that?
We'll begin.
You're going to freeze frame on that first frame.
Yeah.
Just make sure nobody's emailing me to say they're having trouble.
First one.
Yeah.
That's
very
excellent,
close.
isn't it?
Yeah, where it starts, where it says Avengers in colour. Can you freeze frame on that? There, on that one. Well, yeah. Is everybody from England, or have you got people from abroad?
I think we've got a number of people. Obviously, if people want to put where they're from in the chat, then we can see the scope of the audience. So I'll invite people to do that.
Just out of interest.
Yeah, I think we've got a few countries, definitely. I've just had a last minute email from somebody who wants to join us. So I'm just going to send them the details.
Washington, DC. Wow.
Lovely.
The wonders of Zoom.
Yeah. I think I've got some people from
Netherlands. Yeah. Hertfordshire.
Yeah.
North Carolina.
Right.
Washington. Bristol. So far, America's outnumbering everybody else. Sydney.
Yes, very good.
Well, they're doing well because they're way ahead on time, aren't they? So it must be in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter's in Perth and she's 7 hours ahead. I think it's 7, isn't it? Yeah. Bradford. 4 a.m. in Sydney. Oh, well done.
Well done indeed. Yeah, that's very good, isn't it? I did have a comment from Melanie that I'll just read out. So, Cyd, I became a fan of yours. Oh, hang on, it's just on Norfolk as well.
Yeah. Bedford. Belfast.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like I think quite a lot of us probably went to the Chichester event. It seems like.
Yeah. Doesn't seem like 10 years. Germany.
Oh. Right, I think the people I was waiting for have now pretty much signed on. There was a comment I wanted to read out, to see if I can find it a second. Yes, so Melanie wrote, Cyd, I became a fan of yours after learning you adopted Nana's beautiful bird. I have a 24-year-old male single parrot. I am so anxious to leave him. Was Chroma male or female?
We think he was a male, but you can't be absolutely sure.
And he also said, Maisel says, I know macaws live a long time. Did he pass? Is he still with you, or?
No, unfortunately, he became diabetic, and we had to treat him for diabetes, and he picked up an infection. He did actually become back to his normal self with the treatment he was having, but then he picked up airborne infection and unfortunately passed away.
Oh, sorry to hear that. Am I right in saying that your parrot was the one that was in For Your Eyes Only at the end of the?
Yes, yeah. He auditioned for that.
What was that period of your connection, or was it just a coincidence?
Well, I worked on For Your Eyes Only, and I was reading the script, and it was talking about this parrot. So I asked Barbara Broccoli if they'd cast the parrot. I mean, everybody was very friendly. You were always chatting together. And I said, have you cast your parrot yet? And she said, no, we're doing auditions when we get back to England. So I said, can my parrot go to the auditions? So he did. And he passed with flying colours and had a wonderful time.
Oh, lovely. I think it's always one of my favourite scenes from the film, that.
Yeah. He loved it. He thought it was fantastic. They said, when we started, they said, we'll have a standby parrot in case he gets tired. And I said, he won't get tired. This is right up his street. He's going to love this. So the parrot sat outside in the van for 2 days, and then they sent him home, and Chrome did everything himself.
Lovely. We just had good evening, everyone. That's from Ben. Melanie also said that she loved the fact that you and your parrot were in the Pink Panther film together.
Yes, we were. Yes.
It was,
he loved things like that.
Yeah, that was Avengers Pink Panther, wasn't it? If I'm not mistaken.
No, it was the Peter Sellers one.
It Strikes Again was it? Yeah, it must be Strikes Again, I think.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we're probably ready to start now. So just want to say to everyone that's joined us, thank you for joining us for this evening's watch along of Murdersville. Our guest tonight is the wonderful Cyd Child. Cyd's credits include obviously the Avengers, New Avengers, For Your Eyes Only, Pink Panther Strikes Again. Is there any additional credits you'd like to add to that, Cyd?
Superman.
Oh, Superman, of course, yes.
I can't remember them all because quite often you only go and do a little bit and then you go on to something else. I've had this problem recently because we've been trying to get my book together, and I wanted to do a list of everything at the back, and it's taken quite a while, and I still don't think I've got them all in.
Because I think we were saying when I spoke to you last that places like IMDb only have a small amount of your credits.
Yes, yeah.
If everybody's got their episode ready to start, I'll just give you a couple of seconds to get ready if you haven't. So if anyone's having any technical issues, just let us know and we can hold if required. Otherwise, we'll start in about 30 seconds or so. Okay, so we're just going to freeze at the title card and just get my copy ready.
Yeah, we're frozen.
Perfect. Okay, yeah, I've got everybody logged in now. That's great. So I'm the one that's behind. Okay, so everybody's ready. I'll do a count up and 5, them all press play. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, play. Okay. So Cyd, obviously this is the episode that you picked for tonight's event. What makes this one of your favourite episodes?
I thought it was fun to do. The stunt team did quite a lot of work on it. It had lots of memorable things in it, you know, with the duck in stall and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it also has a great location, doesn't it? The village as well.
Yes, yeah.
And it's one of those locations.
And sorry?
Oh, so no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it was because of the stunts that the actual costume was selected, because we started off, the first day was actually working with the second unit. We went out with a helicopter, and I had to run away, jump over a fence and fall down with the helicopter chasing me. And the very first take that we did, the costume split all the way up the front. It was a red trouser suit. So the wardrobe lady stitched me back in, and we did it again, and it did it again. So the director said, we can't do this because there's so much action in this. It's got to be something that can stand up to it. So they selected one of the cat suits back at the studio and sent it out in a car.
So I think it's one of the few episodes that predominantly, well, one of several, obviously very much location based. Did you like going out and doing stuff on location versus the studio? Yes,
it was much more fun somehow. It just felt more relaxed.
Do you remember the two actors that we're seeing on the screen at the moment? Sort of the two main leads.
Yes.
Colin Blakely and also John Ronan. So
yeah.
John's on the left, and
yeah, Colin Blakely's the shorter one, isn't he?
Yeah. What were they like to work with?
They were very nice people. I mean, they come across much as you see them, really.
One of our viewers did want to know, in a minute, obviously, the first victim of Murdersville gets shot, this gentleman here. Do you recall who the stuntman is? So I don't think we...
I wasn't there when they did it. No, I don't know him.
So how did your involvement with the Avengers come about in the first place?
Well, it's a long story, but I'll try and make it as short as possible. I was doing a lot of judo. I found out that people who did judo could get paid for doing stuff in stunts. I was trying to find somebody to contact in the film business at about the same time that Ray Austin was looking for a double for Diana, because the man they'd been using had got hurt. So it was just lucky, really.
And were there many female stunt performers in back then?
No, there weren't very many, and none of them were tall. And Diana's tall, or was tall. So they didn't have any woman that could double for her.
And what was it like being one of the few female performers? And did the industry change during your time in it? How was it like to be a woman in
It did change. To begin with, really, women were only working if they were absolutely stuck for somebody to do the work, wherever possible. If there was something like drive-in or something that they could get away with, you'd get a man would dress up as a woman to do it. But we gradually got that changed, and eventually there was a rule that wherever possible, a woman should double for a woman. And you can get away with more. We got away with a lot more having a woman double for Diana than they could when they had a man, because they don't move the same and they're a different shape. You know, they've got broad shoulders and narrow hips. They don't look like a woman, you know, for very long. You can get away with certain things, but not very much.
Oh yeah, definitely. So did you audition for Ray? Were you amongst a number of people that you saw?
No, they didn't have anybody. He called me in, and I had to stand next to Diana while they walked around us and decided whether or not I would do. And they decided I was the right height and the right colouring, more or less. They told me I'd have to lose a little bit of weight. I'd have to have my hair done. So I had my hair changed to her colour and cut because mine was longer. And then I had costumes made for me that were the same design as hers.
And did you find you would study Diana's mannerisms, her movements?
Yes, yeah. If you try and move the same as the person you're doubling and do the things that they do, you can get away with a lot more. And usually, if you can manage to do that, as long as they don't focus directly on your face, then you're okay.
obviously this episode is written by the great Brian Clemens.
Yes.
Did you have much to do with Brian on your time on the show?
Yes, he was always coming down onto the set and talking to people. He was very friendly.
Because obviously the other producer, Albert Fennell, obviously was more of a, what I understand, more sort of behind the scenes.
Yes, yeah, he kept in the background a bit.
How did he compare to Brian, for example? Apart from
Well, you didn't really see Albert very much, so you didn't get to know him or talk to him. So it's difficult to compare, really. Brian, you could chat to whenever he was around.
And again, Julian Wintle, did you encounter Julian at all?
Not really, no. No, he didn't come down very much. I mean, Brian didn't come out on location, but he'd come down onto the set when we were working in the studio. Yeah.
So would he again sometimes have notes in terms of, you know, when you were doing studio stuff, or was he would if the script was there, he wouldn't sort of do rewrites or?
Well, he would do rewrites, but that was really done through Ray and people like him. Because Ray was sort of in charge of the stunt people. We would go to Ray, Ray would go to Brian.
So by the time Ray was telling you what to do, it wouldn't change from day to day. You knew exactly.
No. If there was any change in, Ray would do it.
So obviously we're looking at obviously Patrick and Diana on the screen at the moment. What's your lasting memories of Patrick?
I thought he was a lovely man. He was really nice, very kind.
And obviously Diana as well, was she?
Diana kept herself to herself more, but I got on all right with her.
Yeah, she always comes across as perhaps being a bit more of a private person, but...
Yes, she was. And she didn't suffer fools gladly. You know, if somebody was doing something she didn't like, she would let you know. Right. But we got on fine.
Oh, good. I did have a question come through, actually. Ian said, the stunt man who shoots the man through the pub door was Maxwell Craig, who was in all sorts of things, usually as a stunt performer.
Yeah. He wasn't one of the regulars, I don't think, which is probably why I didn't know him. And I wasn't there that day, so I wouldn't have had anything to do with him.
So on bigger shows like this, obviously, you'd bring in additional stunt people. And
yes, yeah. Especially if they had a likeness to the person that you want them to double for.
Do you remember this gentleman we're seeing on the screen at the moment, obviously with Colin and John, who plays yes, it's Croft, I think his character is. Oh no, not me. No. Sorry, Eric Flynn was who played Major Croft. Do you remember Eric Flynn at all? Who we see now with Diana.
With the actor? Oh, this one?
Yes.
No, I didn't have anything to do with him. Yeah, it makes her costume look red there, but she wasn't wearing red, it was purple.
Yeah, I think that was probably to say that
the lighting. Yeah. It's a very pretty village.
And because you've been back there a few times, haven't you, various Avengers?
Yes, we went, Dead Man's Treasure, I think we had to go there. They had actually been filming, I think it was The Dirty Dozen, just before we went on Murdersville. Yeah. And the villagers were, at the time, a little bit sort of fed up with film people coming and taking over their village.
Yeah. But obviously they were obviously quite used to it, so I assume that it was quite easy to shoot in the village from that point.
Yeah, it's very pretty.
And I take from the photographs I've seen, it doesn't seem to really have changed too much over the years.
No, we went back there a few years ago now. Can't remember how many years. What was it, about 4 years, Pete? Yeah, and with an Avengers weekend, and the the pond is sort of all filled up at the moment. It's just full of weeds, but they are talking about dredging it out.
Oh, that'd be
But
nice.
they were very friendly to us that day, so they'd obviously got over whatever it was that troubled them before. What we've got here.
So Ian was, sorry, Jeff was saying that, yeah, it's a great day for Dead Man's Treasure back in 2018. So Jeff attended that one. So Ian's asked, did Diana want to do some of her own stunts, or was she always willing to leave that to you or Ray to decide what to do? How was she doing?
Yes, she was quite happy for me to double for her, because at that stage they didn't admit that they had a stunt double anyway, so everybody thought that she did it anyway. And if one of your artists gets hurt doing any of this, the actual cost of delaying filming is quite astronomical, so the insurance people don't like them to do it if possible, even if they could.
Because some people can be more sort of, or they want to do it, and you've got some of the whole actor's back, but then obviously what she could do.
Yeah, yeah, she would do it if she could do it and they wanted her to, but other than that, she was quite happy for me to do it for her.
Oh, great. So this is obviously directed by Robert Asher. Do you remember the director at all?
I do remember him, but not sort of ever so well. I remember particularly when we did the ducking sequence, he said to me before we did it, he said, "How long can you stay underwater?" And I said, "I don't know." But I said, "Why?" So he said, "Well, what we want is for her to go down and the water, all the ripples to disappear and the water to be still." So I said, "Well, how about I go down and then I'll wiggle my toes when I want you to pull me up." So he said, "Okay, we'll have a go at that." So we did it, and they pulled me up before I'd wiggled my toes. So I said, "What happened? You know, why did you bring me up early?" And he said, "I didn't like it. It made me feel sick."
Right. Did you find that the directors would push the male stunt performers more than they would perhaps you, or was it that type of sort of mindset? Or
I think generally they had an idea in their head of what they wanted, and that's what they were aiming at, and they didn't care who did it, so long as it was going to be what they had in mind.
Right, I see.
I think Johnny Huff admitted that when we saw him on the 50th anniversary.
So how was your relationship with Diana B to say Linda Forster when she came in the year after? How did they two compare?
Oh, they were two completely different people, really. With Diana, she would just get on with the job, and she was quite happy for me to do it, which meant that we could try and push it a little bit and make it more and more extravagant, if you like, on the things we did. Whereas Linda really wanted to do it all herself. So she would try and, you know, water it down a little bit so that she could. Eventually, she got used to the idea, but for a while, it was a bit difficult.
I see. Because obviously, Linda was less experienced as an actress compared to.
Yes, I think it was her. Pardon me. I think it was her first big job.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Another one bites the dust.
So I was just wondering. Yeah. It's quite an interesting concept, isn't it? This episode, although you do see it in other TV series, I think have copied this since the idea of a whole village or community being in on a
yes.
It's obviously inspired quite a few things over the years.
Yeah, well, it was an interesting idea.
And it's slightly similar to Town of No Return, which I think was the first Black episode where obviously all the town was replaced with these spies, and they were killing off the locals and any visitors. And quite similar to quite similar to Eagle's Nest, thinking about it, the first New Avengers episode. The Nazis take over the island, so that's with certain themes that Brian liked to revisit over the years. And,
yes, I wonder who did it first.
yeah, it's very difficult to find the original idea, isn't it? You know.
Yes.
Don't they say there's like 7 different types of you can tell, and then after that it's all combinations of them, and it's all so yeah, it's very difficult to know, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
So of all the cast that we're seeing at the moment, do you have any memories at all of any of the guest cast here?
Well, I only had dealings with them when we were doing any action, and then generally they'd be sort of standing back and letting us get on with it. You might have a chance of chatting to them between takes, but like scenes like this, I wouldn't be around because that's just Diana. So we didn't really, I mean, you'd talk to them and you'd get on a friendly basis, but you didn't really get to know them. Don't think with any of them, really.
Because I imagine an episode would probably take maybe a week to shoot, so you would probably end up maybe 2 or 3 days of that shoot typically on a...
Yeah, I would say it probably took about 2 weeks. And then what would happen was they would start showing it, and it was being shown every week. So we were taking 2 weeks to make it. They would start to gradually catch us up.
Yeah.
And then there would be panic setting in, and you'd have a first unit and a second unit, and then you'd have a third unit and a fourth unit, and you'd be doing bits that need to fit in on an episode that you finished with and all that kind of thing. So as the series progressed, it got more and more, you know, busy.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot of episodes that are doing in a year, aren't they? It's sort of 20,
yes,
29, which you, of course, these days you would 10, 12 if you're lucky, sort of thing. So
yes, that's true.
And why do you think that? I mean, do you think that it's more difficult to produce TV? Is it money, or is it health and safety, the time you've got to take to do things that makes the TV process slower these days, or is it just?
I don't know how it is these days because I haven't worked in the film business for a little while, but we shot the Avengers like it was a mini film, which is why it's such good quality.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because obviously this was the time where things like Doctor Who were still in black and white and they were on videotape. And
yes.
Did you ever do any live sort of TV or anything like that?
I did one, I think it was called Spider's Web. Was that ATV? They wanted, I had to fall down a well. It wasn't a real well, but I had to fall down a well. I don't know what the story was about. This is the thing, you get called in and you wouldn't know what the story is. Can you put this costume on and fall down these stairs? And thank you very much, that's fine, bye. And you didn't know what the rest of it was about.
Well, that covers a question that the Ben's actually said. Did you receive scripts prior to shooting episodes, or were they purely for the regular actors? So it sounds like you just got your bit. You didn't perhaps see the full script.
No, I mean, I did get a few scripts, but not very many. I think I got one for Dead Man's Treasure because there was quite a lot of work in that. And I may have had one for this. I don't know. I had a little pile of scripts some years ago, and I gave them to a charity. So I don't know if they auctioned them off or what. I hope they did. They probably went in the bin.
Let's hope not. I suppose you didn't really think back then of keeping
no,
or anything like that.
No, when it finished, it was like finished, and people didn't talk about it anymore. It wasn't on the telly. Everybody went on to other things, and it was sort of like in the past. It wasn't anything special, so you didn't keep things really. And it's only sort of, well, I don't know whether they were showing them continually in America or what, but it's only sort of over the last, years that it's got to the state it has.
Oh yeah, I think so. Probably with the I suppose maybe probably start with the home video VHS market and
Yes, yeah,
DVDs and then DVDs and the Blu-rays, and obviously on things like ITV channel 4, on ITV4 they're always on. So yeah, in terms of when it went really crazy, maybe sort of 25 years ago perhaps.
yes. But there was a little amount of time after it finished where it was just not remembered. It was just finished with.
Hmm.
So I wish I'd kept some of the things. I might have made myself a small fortune.
You might have, yeah. And especially on big films like Fury's Only or the Superman films.
Yes.
Again, little. I think some of the crystals from the Fortress of Solitude. I think some
That would have been nice. Yeah.
And obviously they're like 50,000-60,000 pounds or something now. So,
wow. Yes.
But I don't think that yeah, the whole culture of preserving things, and because in the world of collecting, you used to buy action figures and you used to play with them. Now you buy it and keep it in its package and you put it on a shelf.
That's right. Yeah.
It's a different sort of mindset, I think now.
Yeah.
We had a question from Gary. He wanted to know some of your memories of working on the first 2 Superman films.
Oh. Where'd you start, really? I remember I didn't know what Christopher Reeve looked like until later on, and then I realized that he'd opened a door for me at one point, which I thought was quite ironic somehow. Yeah, it was. We did a lot of work on the earthquake scene, which is you can only see an extended version.
Yeah.
They kept calling us back to redo things, and it was, quite hectic. We arrived on the set at Pinewood, and they wouldn't let us go out on the set for quite a while. And it turned out they'd got sets made of, I don't know, just wooden, just fronts for houses. And they'd got them attached to cranes, which were shaking them about to make the earthquake. But they didn't let us see that. We had to stay in our caravans, which is probably just as well, because apparently one of them fell off the crane, which might put us off.
Yeah. They did have a couple of accidents, unfortunately, on the first Superman film. There's a big scene where Superman saves Air Force One, and I think there's during the rehearsal, one of the wings fell and crushed somebody to death, sadly.
Oh dear, I didn't hear about that.
I think there was somebody else as well. That I think there was another accident. I think that was, yeah, I think 2 people died on that film. I know Paul Weston, who's obviously very well connected with the Avengers. He was on the first Superman film, and he broke his collarbone in one of his wires snapped. So I think it was a very sort of difficult film from a technical.
Yeah, I remember because he joined in on this earthquake scene, because what I had to do, there was another stuntman, Jazza, who was with me, and we had to climb out of a window onto a porch of this house that's shaking about and climb off it. So there wasn't really anything you could climb onto. And I remember Paul, you had to sort of do a bit of improvising to keep it going. And Paul sort of rushed to help me off of this thing, because there wasn't anywhere, I couldn't jump because there was a sort of a set of stairs that ran away from underneath me, which kept moving. And he came down and grabbed me to help me get off.
And obviously then you're obviously back on the Superman 2 with Richard Lester versus Richard Donner. And it was the Metropolis battle, I believe you said it was, that you involved in that one. Is that mainly what you
I'm
did?
not sure, but yeah, it was in the film. You see the water coming down the canyon, and then it goes to all the people running about, and then it cuts to this town where the houses are all shaking, and that was us.
And then in number 2,
that was in number 1, yeah.
Number 1, wasn't it? And then because obviously, did you notice much of a difference in terms of Richard Lester directing versus Richard Donner? Or did it not really make a difference?
Well, it doesn't really make any difference because as a stunt person, you answer to the stunt arranger and he tells you what you're doing. On 2, we were doing the baddies blowing people and cars down the roads and that kind of thing. And what I remember about that in particular was it was freezing cold. It was the middle of winter. I think it was December in England. And they said to us, it's supposed to be the middle of summer in New York. So we had to wear clothes that looked like summery clothes, but it was really, really cold. And on the first day, we all wore thermal underwear. And on the second day, the wardrobe man had laid out a table with all this underwear that he bought from Marks and Spencer's. And he said, I'm afraid you can't wear your thermal stuff anymore because with the wind, we might see it. So you help yourself, you can have what you want, but you've got to have this stuff. So we used to stand at the side wearing sort of like ski boots and warm things and warm scarves and everything. And they say, okay, stand by, you're in the next shot. And then you'd have to take it all off and go and look as if it's warm.
Yeah. I was going to say with this, but watching this episode last night, the one sort of flaw I could see in it was that obviously Mrs. Peel dispatches with the doctor, and obviously she then escapes, but she then comes back to the village. She doesn't just take her car and go off and tell Steve.
I don't know if she knows where her car is, or maybe they've taken it away.
Because she does. We missed it, I think, because we were talking, but she overpowers the doctor, and then we see her in her car, and she drives back to the village to then do some more investigating. And it just seemed to me almost like asking for trouble a little bit. It almost seemed like
yes. Was she still looking for her friend? You know.
Yeah, because she sees him in the morgue. Because she tried to escape the doctor, and then she opens one of the doors and she sees.
All right.
And his associate, and they're both on mortuary slabs. So
yeah,
she knows they're both dead. She knows that quite a few people in the village are there's something weird going on, and then she goes back to the village again, which just seems, for Brian Clement's script, it just seemed slightly odd.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I should obviously have watched it last night as well.
Because now obviously she's going to be caught. I was thinking it might have been better for her to run out the surgery and for them to be waiting for her or something like this. It's sort of almost like there's one scene too many.
Yeah. Well, I know we did shoot one bit where she's running away and they get her with a helicopter. Well, perhaps that was earlier on.
Yeah. That's coming up in the, and obviously
there's Paul Weston now.
Yeah. So what was Paul like to work with? Because obviously you worked with him on this.
Yeah, no, he was lovely. He originally came on the Avengers as a stand-in or a double for Cyd.
Yeah.
And then when Rocky left to go on the Italian job, they asked Paul if he would have a go at doing the stunts. I think he wanted to get into the stunt business.
Yeah. Obviously you're doing some shots here of going for Diana.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of that sort of speeded up. Did you like when they sort of sped up the fight scenes, or would you just have liked to have played a bit more?
Well, that would be down to the stunt arranger. That's me. You can tell it's the back. That would be down to the stunt arranger and the camera crew to decide what they were going to do.
Yeah.
We did actually film the bit with the helicopter right at the beginning before they started on any of the rest of it.
All right.
I think that was again because we were having several units working.
And if I was to have another criticism of the episode, would be that she, instead of staying in the cover of the tree, she goes out to the open space where the helicopter can get her.
Yes, yeah, that was a shot where the red trouser suit tore.
Oh, right.
Climbing over the fence and falling down. I think it was just badly made, that particular one. Yeah, well, I suppose you've got to have a little bit of excitement, haven't you? She's got to do it wrong so that they can catch her.
Oh, yeah. I think otherwise,
yeah.
The episode.
Maybe she doesn't know there's a helicopter after her. Did she know there's a helicopter after her?
I think she does at a certain point, but I suppose any flaws could probably be explained by the fact that it's such an odd situation to be in where the whole community is kind of against you.
Yes, and it is the Avengers. You can't expect it to be normal.
Oh, no. I know Desmond Llewellyn, who played Q in the Bond films. He was always asked, obviously, why Bond was so successful, and he said one of the reasons was that they took you to these wonderful locations, had these beautiful women, or these action, and you just took the plot and you kept it moving so quickly that you wouldn't notice all the inconsistencies and all the errors and things like that.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, if you dissect it too much, then it's not got the same feel to it.
So what's it like working with doing stunts for helicopter? Because obviously there's quite a few shots where it looks like at least that it gets very close to you.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, it's quite tiring because it can travel quite a long way. So there's a lot of running doing this.
And this is where would it take most of the day to do a sequence like that?
Yeah, I think we took all day. I don't think we did 2 days. I think we did 1.
It's very impressive the sequence, I must admit. I love all the labels on the little devices.
Yes. I can't remember where they put her. I know there's a helmet.
Oh yes, we'll come to that I think a bit later on.
Chastity belt.
And the problem I have with this is that's not a chastity belt.
No, it's not.
No.
Oh, those must be the real villagers.
Yeah, these are the few that wouldn't agree to the plans, I recall.
Yeah. I thought it was quite a good episode, actually. It was, you got a certain amount of unrealness to it, but at the same time, it's got, a story.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't too way out.
Oh no, it's something you could see could happen. If a place was, fallen on hard times in a community, you could see somebody coming in and giving. As far-fetched it is, there's enough realism, enough plausibility to it.
Yeah.
I just have a question come up. Oh yeah, so Ian's asked, was there any stunt that you decided would be too dangerous to do?
I think if Ray thought that we could do it and he told us how to do it, we'd always do it. No, I think Ray would work out a way of doing something. If he thought it was too dangerous to do, then he wouldn't even suggest it. And I was so naive at the time. I hadn't been in the business for very long. If Ray said, this is how you do it, then that's what I would do. And I wouldn't question it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was you could always trust, basically.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Ian's also asked, so were all the scenes in the Avengers involving stunts recorded on the same day or days, or would you split it up with other shooting?
I think the only time just trying to remember. There was one I did, I think it must have been the Fear Merchants. Is that the one where she wears that turquoise jacket and carries a crocodile? There was one where I had to avoid a motorbike, and they wanted the motorbike to charge at me, and I had to jump out of the way at the last minute. We kept doing it, and they kept saying it's not close enough, it's not close enough. And I kept letting it be a little bit closer and a little bit closer. And I began to think, I don't think I can make this any closer without it hitting me. And they went away sort of, yeah, all right. And then some weeks later, then we had to do it again. And that time, I think it was on the back lot of Pinewood. And it was the same thing. Can you get it closer? Can you get it closer? And in the end, I let the bike hit me because I couldn't make it any closer. But we did do that on 2 days, 2 different, totally separate days.
And so obviously that was probably one of the most dangerous things that you've done by the sounds of it.
Well, I mean, it wasn't that bad. I mean, there are others that are more dangerous, but yeah, it was. I didn't like it very much because I couldn't see where they were going.
Yeah.
You know.
And what did Ray think about? Did Ray have input on?
Ray was there on the
or?
first day, and he was quite happy with what we did on the first day. On the second day, he wasn't there. He was doing something else.
Right. So otherwise, it's likely that he would have stepped in and said.
Yes, he may well have done. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Piers had says that Escape in Time was with the stuffed crocodile.
That's the one. That's the one. Here we've got the ducking thing.
So how much prep would you've had for something like this?
How do you mean?
So would you write the day before and then work it out, or was it something that was worked out?
We just did this on the day.
On the day, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What I thought was funny when they did this with Diana is those things that go over her hands are just wooden loops, and we had to push our hands in. So it wasn't actually holding us. So if you wanted to, you had your hands free, but you left them there to make it look right. And Diana was doing this bit, and she was coming up and coughing and spluttering, and she whipped her hand out to cough and put her hand over her mouth as you would normally do, and then suddenly realised. I don't know if they've got it somewhere as an outtake. It was quite funny at the time.
Oh yeah. It'd be interesting to know what they've got and what they haven't sort of from this time.
Yeah.
So as you say, you had your signals of what to do if you wanted to come up and all that sort of
thing.
So
yeah.
A very dramatic sequence, but a fairly sort of controlled one. How were you with working in? Did you like stunts involving water? Is there certain stunts that you didn't like doing, or heights, etc.?
I would prefer water to fire. I don't like fire very much. We did odd occasional things with fire, which I find a little bit worrying. I don't like fire very much, but we do it.
And I think you have a question coming from the chat. Obviously, the weather looks very idyllic in the episode. Was it always very good weather, or did you have any?
It was that when we did that, it was good weather. So I mean, with the Avengers, it's always good weather, isn't it? So you can't go out there and do it if it's raining.
Yeah. So at least the water wasn't too cold.
Yeah. This is when she names the children, and they're all the names of the Avengers producers.
Yeah, we got Brian, we've got Albert, we've got Julian. Did she also say Gordon as well?
I think she might have done. I think she was talking about little baby Brian at one point.
Yeah. So I'm not sure who Gordon was, because I recognised the other three, obviously. But,
I'm trying to think. There was Gordon. I can't think. I'd have to look at the credits.
Yeah. So I had a question from Ian come in. As the stunt person for both Dana and Linda, who would not be needed every day, how did the company ensure that you were always available and went off on other jobs on the days that you were not needed?
Well, when I first started, nobody knew me, so they just hired me for the days they wanted me. And then it got that it would clash with other things, so they gave me a contract.
So I assume, obviously, we weren't there on every day, but I assume you were probably planning or prepping,
well,
an episode.
As you got going, you might be working on one episode and preparing for another one. Some of the big fights you'd need to rehearse. You'd be doing one thing in one place and then going to another. It was all sort of broken up into pieces. I mean, sometimes there was one occasion, I think that was on Dead Man's Treasure, when I was working in the studio, and then they called me to go out because what had been an ordinary drive-by had now become a stunt. So the lady that was going to do the driving couldn't do it. It was now I had to do it.
Right.
So you were just available, really.
So it sounds like it was a fairly sort of full-time.
It was. To begin with, it wasn't, but then that was because they weren't used to having a woman that they could use for a double, and nobody knew me anyway, so I wasn't going to be on anything else.
Ian said that it was Gordon.
Gordon Scott. Yeah, that's right. Well done.
Production manager for the series. Jeff said that's. Thank you, Jeff and Ian. Andrew's asked, did you drive the Lotus at any point?
Yes, I like driving that. Yeah, what was nice is if you went on location, the Lotus had to go out as well, so you'd have a designated driver, and if I was lucky, I would be the designated driver, which I thought was great, because then I had to drive the car there, look after it during the day, and drive it back at the end of the day, and that was great fun. The only problem was when I got in my own car to drive home, I used to think that something had happened to it because it would be such an old heap compared with the Lotus.
Okay. So Ian's also asked, was it much more difficult to do stunts on a tape show rather than on a film show like The Avengers? So obviously we kind of covered that a little bit.
Yeah.
But, obviously I assume with this, something on film, you'd obviously, like the well scene that we were talking about earlier, that was probably obviously one take because that was live, whereas this you could do a couple of
yeah, if they didn't like what we'd done, then we'd do it again.
Yeah. And did you
they're going to have a fight in a minute with custard pies, if I remember right.
Do you remember much about this sequence? Was it interesting from your point of view?
Well, with the custard pies, I think, if I'm right, and we certainly did it over more than one day, and I've got a feeling there was a weekend in between. So they started off with sort of nice fresh custard pies, and then just left them there. And when we came back, the custard was beginning to smell a bit off. I remember that. And when we did the fight, which they're just about to do, I think, she ends up being thrown into all the custard pies, and then they called cut, and of course the set is totally quiet because nobody's making any noise, But I could hear this giggling, and there was one of the sparks in the set above me was killing himself laughing.
And it's quite clever also to put the knight's helmet on there, because obviously
you can't see who it is. Yeah.
Could you see through the helmet? Did it make it more difficult for you?
Well, yeah, it does make it more difficult because it's uncomfortable and it rattles about, you know.
And I assume because you didn't have to worry about camera angles, that would made it, you could probably shoot it quicker than, say, if you were worrying about inserts and.
Yes. Yeah.
So when you did scenes with Diana, was it always very clear? Would you do the whole scene and then she might then do some of it, and then you would use Diana? Or...
If there was a big fight, then what we would do is we would rehearse it as a team and do what they called a master shot, where we would go from the beginning to the end of the fight, doing the whole thing. And then the director and the camera crew would pick out little bits where they could get a nice close-up of the artist they want, and they would do that little bit, which they would have sat and watched, so they knew what we were trying to do. And then they'd cut it in.
Yeah. I think I remember when they did the Adam West Batman series, I think how they did a lot of those stunts was that they would do, apart from the obvious things that the main cast can do, they would basically do everything with the actors. The stunt people would do the entire scene, and then they would kind of sort of mix and match a little bit of what made the final sort of take.
Yes.
Oh yes, Ian says that he's a librarian, and the fight scene is absolutely painful to watch. Seeing all slime.
What with all the books?
Yeah. Well, then the noise as well, the noise of the, otherwise, and that's what the fun thing about the man being shot in the library, and the librarian says, points to the silent sign, so he puts a silencer on the gun, and that's obviously a very good.
Yes, it's all very tongue-in-cheek.
Oh yeah, yes, brilliantly done, isn't it? Do you recall the who was Patrick's stunt double in that fight scene?
Oh, I think it was probably Rocky, because they had Paul as one of the villagers. He was actually playing a part as one of the villagers. So that may, I don't know actually, because that was towards the end, wasn't it? There was only a few more episodes afterwards. So Rocky, I don't know. It may have been Paul. I can't remember. Funny how you remember some things and not others.
Oh yeah, definitely. Do you remember Alan Hume, the cinematographer?
Yes, yeah.
Because again, he obviously went on to a few
on
of the
films.
Roger Moore films.
Yeah.
And, I never unfortunately got to meet him, but he always seemed like a very
he's a lovely
nice
man. I worked with him quite a few times. I did some Central Office of Information films that he was on. And on For Your Eyes Only, he had his son working on the camera crew as well.
Oh, lovely. Talking about cinematographers, going back to Superman, I was wondering about Jeffrey Umsworth. Did Jeffrey do any of your stuff, the cinematographer, or he might not perhaps have done the action sequences, perhaps?
I don't know. I didn't always know the names of the actual crew on some of the films unless I'd worked with them before. I'd always recognise the Avengers people because I knew them quite well. But some of the others I didn't know who they were.
Piers says it looked like Rocky tailing one of the shots, so it probably was.
It could well have been, yes. Rocky did a lot of doubling for Patrick, and until he unfortunately decided he was going to do the Italian job, and then he was gone.
Yeah, I don't think he returned at all, did he? Didn't do New Avengers or anything of
No,
that nature.
no.
I'm just going to see if we've got any more questions that have come through. So what was it like to see the episode again? When's the last time you sort of saw Murdersville?
Oh, well, actually, I haven't seen it for quite a while. It's always refreshing to see it when you haven't seen it for a while, because then you can't remember how the story goes. And sometimes I watch an episode and I don't know what the story, I don't know what to expect from the story. And then I see her wearing something that I think, I know I had a costume of that, so I must be doing something in a minute.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So then it comes as a surprise, and yes, that's what I did.
But for the most part, you can enjoy it as an audience member rather than necessarily thinking, "Oh,
yes, yeah.
Oh, Ian did mention the Spider's Web starring Patricia Cutts and Anthony Ainley. It was a mixture of tape and film. The series mainly survives on monochrome and was released on DVD, so it is available.
All right.
If you wish it.
Yeah. But we did do that live, because we had to rehearse it and then hang around and do it in the evening, which is totally different to working on something like the Avengers, where you work from 8:30 in the morning till sort of 5:45 in the evening, and then you've got the evening to yourself. Whereas you work on something like the television people, and you're sort of there for the rest of the evening as well.
And did you find it quite nerve-wracking doing live TV?
Well, only that you have to make sure that you do it on the time they expect you to do it. You can't sort of fiddle about, but then generally you do that anyway.
Had a question from Melanie. She says, given your long career in stunt work, was your time in the Avengers your favourite, or was there another series or movie you have fonder memories of?
I think, well, I was on the Avengers for a long time. It was like 2.5 years. So you can really sort of get to know everybody and enjoy it. So yeah, I suppose the Avengers is, yeah, especially the Diana Rigg series.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's one everybody remembers, isn't it? And I think obviously with Linda Forson, it was a bit chaotic, especially.
Well, it started off badly. I mean, it settled down, but to begin with, it wasn't very good. They kept chopping and changing who was in charge, which spoiled it.
Oh yeah, yeah. So do you have any other anything you want to add about the episode we haven't already touched on, or have we covered most?
I think we've covered most of that.
I'm just going to see if we've got any more questions come through before the events. So covered one. Oh yes, Piers wanted to know a bit more about your fellow stunt women, like Dorothy Ford, stand-ins like Mary Fielder, Elaine Rickard, Annabelle Heath. I don't know if any of those names ring any bells, but
Dorothy Ford was a friend of mine. She lived not far from me, and we were quite good friends.
And because obviously, it was saying there was lots of male stunt performers at this time, but obviously becoming more and more. So, were their experiences as good as yours? Were you all fairly? Was it a good experience to be a female stunt performer at that time? Do you see?
Well, the men got more work at that time. I mean, if there was a war film or something happening, there would generally not be very much work for any woman. I mean, if there were any women in the actual scene, they would generally disappear by the time there was a stunt going to happen.
So did you find that other female performers like yourself initially got into it as part-time and then did another job, or was it more of could they have a career like obviously you ended up having?
I think everybody has their own story. I mean, Dorothy came from a family that were into horses. She was a very good rider, and she'd got her own horses, and her relatives were the same. So that was her big thing, that she was very good on horseback. She did other things as well. I'm not sure about the others. They all had their own reasons for why they did it.
So it's quite a pioneering thing to do back then. So
there were only about 5 or 6 of us at the time.
And then, of course, when you went into things like the New Avengers and obviously some of your, like the Bond film, for example, did you find the industry was much more of a level playing field, or was it still developing at that time?
I think it was still developing. Yeah. It's gradually improved over the years.
I have had a question come in from Ian. He's obviously quite excited about you writing your autobiography, and he'd just like some more information about your book, what it will contain, and from the outset.
Well, it should have been out in Easter 2020. It's with the publishers, and COVID-19 has delayed it. And I spoke to, I had a message from my publisher today saying that they're hoping that they should be able to have it out by August now.
Lovely.
So hopefully, fingers crossed. And yeah, I believe as far as I know, it's going to be called Judo, the Avengers, and Me.
Oh, nice title.
And it's my autobiography.
And did you enjoy writing it?
It's been interesting writing it because you start researching yourself, which is weird, and then you get reminded of things that you've forgotten about. I thought I'd written it, and then I started looking for photographs, and then I came across a whole packet of photographs that because you don't normally get very many when you work as a stunt performer, because unless you've got a friend with you who will take something for you, you're not going to get the picture. And generally, when I was working on the Avengers and some of the earlier things, they didn't really want to take photographs of you because they didn't want to admit that they had a double. The artist did it themselves. So I didn't have a lot of photographs, and I came across this packet of photographs, and I thought I'd totally forgotten all about that film. It just happened that day I had a friend with me who took the photographs. So then you start having to find a space where you can put that in. And then I thought everything was done, and I'd given it to the publisher for 2020 for Easter. And then, of course, I've been sitting at home in lockdown for 18 months practically. And then you start thinking of other things that you've missed out, or you talk to somebody and they say, I hope you put that in your book. And you think, I don't know if I did. And you go and have a look and you find you haven't. So then you've got to put that in. Or something will happen that will remind you of a film you worked on that you haven't included. So I must have driven my publisher totally bonkers, because I keep sending him emails saying, I've just been looking at chapter whatever, can you fit this bit in, please? Can you see if you can get a copyright on this photograph? And it's just, he must be so wanting to get it finished just to shut me up.
But still a great opportunity to be able to add to it like that, because normally, of course, you probably wouldn't have had a chance to do it. So
no, it would all have been done, and that would be too late. But yeah. So hopefully, fingers crossed. And as soon as I know anything, I will try and put it on the various Avengers groups on Facebook so that they know, or anybody who does want to know.
Yeah, I'll look forward to getting my copy, definitely. What's a nice question here? Yes, Ian asks.
You can always put out a revised edition. Yes, that's true.
Yeah, the old double dip. Yeah. I think Ian's also asked, some people who were involved in stunts over time concentrated more on acting or stunt arranging, that sort of thing. Were you ever tempted to go down that route?
I didn't have any acting training. I did do the arranging on the first of the new Avengers. That's as far as I went, really.
Yeah. And what was the reason why you stopped at that particular point?
Probably because we were having a family then, and I found that I changed my outlook once we had children. Whereas before, if they wanted to say, can you come, I'd be booked for a day and it would drag out into 3 days. And you think, great, great, great. Or, you know, if you did a day and it became a week, that was fine. Or if you did overtime, that was fine. Once I had a child waiting for me at home, I didn't really want to do overtime. I wanted to get home. And then I found that previously where it was, a bit daredevil and you never thought that anything would actually really happen to you, you'd either live or you'd die. It comes to a point where you start thinking, well, maybe I would get hurt and then I wouldn't be able to look after my child. And I heard myself one day, somebody rang up and said, can you work for us on Thursday? And I said, what do you want me to do? And they said, well, we want you to hang on the side of a train. And I said, why? And I thought, I can't believe I just said that. Because normally it would be, you know, how much and how many days. And I thought, I can't believe I said that. And I thought, I'm not looking at it in quite the same way. Yeah. So and then we moved down to Devon and it was too far away. So I just gradually dropped out.
So at the time when they were making Avengers, you were probably living reasonably close to the studio. And so it
wasn't too far. And I lived alone. I got my own little flat and I just went to the Avengers and did judo. That was all I did.
And it was mainly Elstree, wasn't it? I think that the Avengers was shot in. Do you remember much about? Do you like working at Elstree?
Yes, I did. Yes, it was good fun. And we were. I don't know if they still have it there now, but they had a stage which was like a big rectangular building which was divided into quarters, and we had 2 stages, and one of the stages was the Saint, and I'm not sure what the other one was. It might have been the Champions. I can't remember. But Roger Moore used to sneak in and play practical jokes on us, which was quite funny.
That was going to be the question I was thinking of, because obviously there's so many fantastic TV series being made at this time. You must have encountered various people in the canteens and that sort of thing. What was it kind of like? Sort of, did you appreciate it at the time, the magic that was sort of happening?
It was just exciting. It was good fun, and we had MGM Studios up the other end of Elstree itself, you know, Boreham Wood, and that was quite an old studio which had lots of things in it that the other studios didn't have. You know, we did a shipwreck once there, and they had these big tip tanks they would fill up with water and tip over you, and apparently the other studios didn't have that.
Oh right, yeah. In terms of Avengers locations, do you have a favourite location from the Avengers?
I did like Aldbury, Little Storpin in the Swaff. But generally, they would give you what they called location sheets, which would give you directions on where to get somewhere. Like tomorrow you'd be working and you'd have to be there at whatever time, 7:30 or whatever it was. And they would give you directions on how to get there because there was no sat nav. You just had to go there and you drive there, and there would be like little wooden markers hammered into the ground, which would have arrows pointing where you had to go. And it would have like a little emblem stamped on it, which was a gun with a rose in the end. Wouldn't say anything else, but we'd all know that that was where we had to go, you know. And then once you got there, you followed everybody else to get to the next one. So you didn't really know where you were going, to be honest. But it was quite fun. And we'd have the the catering wagon there. You'd be sitting on the grass eating your lunch, and it was just different, you know.
Did you prefer working on the type of location versus the studio?
Yeah, I think I did, really, because it was always good weather. We didn't go out if it was raining. And yeah, it was just more relaxed somehow.
Yeah, I suppose people like to get out of the cramped, but not, you know.
Yeah, and you're not likely to get people coming from the offices to check on what's going on and, you know, making points. You know, you're out there.
Because so I said.
I was just going to say, and if you've got somebody like Ray, he was trying to move into being a director. So gradually, he wasn't just the stunt arranger, he was the second unit director and the stunt arranger. Eventually, of course, he became first unit director and disappeared and went off to do big things. But for a while, it would make it quite sort of, you know, a bit of a family group.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because obviously the Avengers was a very big hit by the time that you came on it, and obviously just increased. When did you start to get? Because obviously you were saying that they didn't really want to admit that there was a you know, stunt doubles, etc. When did you start to get recognition for, oh, this is Cyd Child from the Avengers?
I think on the new Avengers, which was like 7 years after the old Avengers had finished, then they gave me a credit as a fight ranger.
Yeah.
But they didn't say double, you know, or anything like that. I think on For Your Eyes Only, it said stunt team, and it gave a list of names, but it wouldn't say what you did.
And I mean, obviously, it sounds like you're quite happy with that and being anonymous like that. But did other stunt performers think, well, I would like to be known, or was it not an ego sort of thing?
You just accepted it, that that's the way things were. And some people would talk about the actors as being their dialogue doubles. But you just accepted that that's the way it was. It didn't matter, really. You did the job and got paid for it. Everybody in the business knew that you did it. It didn't really matter.
So
it wasn't until people started getting videos and DVDs that they could stop the action and look at you that they had to actually admit that somebody else had done it.
So was this the time then when you started to get a lot of fan attention and people were, when the home videos sort of started to come out?
I suppose so. I hadn't really thought about that, but yes, I should think so. I mean, when they were just showing the film and it couldn't be freeze framed or anything, nobody knew that you did it. But once people had got videos, they could look at, you know, the one, is that Escape in Time, where you've got the cell and it goes straight past the camera, and then you can see it.
Yeah.
But at the time it was shown, nobody spotted it at all.
Oh yeah, and it was obviously, people had a lot smaller TVs back then, and it was, you know, you wouldn't have thought about you having those technologies.
But you couldn't even say, oh, that looked like somebody else, let me go back and have a look. You couldn't do that.
That's right. I had another question come in. It's just about Return of the Cybernauts. There's a scene where Emma crashes through a gate driving her car. And Piers just had a question. It said that apparently you once commented to say that it wasn't you driving the car. So obviously sometimes people would. Did you have a specialist stunt driver, or?
Oh, I drove the car.
You did on that particular bit.
Yeah.
And I suppose the second part of his question is, was there a clear distinction between what might have been done by this stunt person would do this kind of stunts, this person would do that? But was it?
Well, it could be. It could be if there was something coming up which was the job required driving, then the stunt arranger would be looking for a stunt man or woman who was good at that.
Yeah.
If it was something to do with horses, they'd be looking for somebody who was good at that, you know.
So would you describe yourself as very much an all-rounder when it came to stunts, or was there something?
Yes, I would think so. Yes, yeah. But generally it was, I just did what I was told, and Ray was in charge for my first ones. And the driving on that one that you're talking about, it was Ray told me to do it this particular way, and I did it. You know, he told me I'd got to go through that gate. I think it was 45 miles an hour. Must be going through at 45 miles an hour, and they'd prepared it. And we were doing the chase, and Cyd was chasing Emma in his Bentley, which was struggling to keep up, and I had to watch him in the mirror and keep slowing down to keep him behind me. And then the gate was getting closer and closer, and I thought, I've got to go through at 45, and I'm not doing 45. So then at the last minute I had to put my foot down to go through it, so I probably went through it about 75, but I had to go through at 45 according to Ray. And the funny thing about it was that the Lotus didn't have a mark on it, it just had these white paint patterns from the gate. It had gone all over the car, which they then had to clean off, but it didn't actually damage the car, which I found quite astonishing, really.
So you didn't have a backup stunt car, you just had
we had the one, that was it. That was one car.
So did that make you nervous, the fact that you only had one car, one of this? Or?
Well, it didn't occur to me, to be honest. It wasn't until I worked on the Bond film and saw that they had like a whole garage full of spares of various kinds. Some of them would just be a shell, that I thought, oh yeah, that's a good idea, really.
So what would you, from the obviously classic Avengers series, do you have a particular favourite stunt, or and also a favourite episode if Murdersville isn't your favourite?
Well, I don't know, there's one particular one. I did like Murdersville. I did like Dead Man's Treasure. Some of the others had bits and pieces in them that I particularly liked or was pleased with. And some of the best things you do sometimes get missed by the camera. We did a wonderful one on Return of the Cybernauts where Emma comes out and she's being told to drive to Peter Cushing, and Cyd tries to stop her and has to jump out of the way, and she has to go around the corner really, really fast. And I did it, and what happened was the tyres screamed all the way round. Round the corner was half of London, all hiding, but wanting to see what was going on. And as we went round the corner with these screaming tyres, all the windows which were facing the camera, everybody was pulling the curtains back to find out what had happened. So they couldn't use it. So we had to do it again, and it wasn't quite the same. I mean, it was all right, but that one was the best one, but we couldn't use it.
There's quite in one of the Bond films, when they go to Las Vegas, they had a lot of problems with crowds then. So I think there's a stunt they had to do there, but it's too many people, so they had to do it back at Pinewood. And as a result, the stunt has a continuity error, because I think so one of the cars Bond's driving had to go on two wheels through this.
Oh, that's right, and it was on the wrong side, wasn't it?
That was purely because they had to film it back in.
Yes.
So did you find that was fairly common on the Avengers, where there was a crowd control element, and was it ever?
Well, with the Avengers, they seemed to try to have it so that it was always a sunny day, and if it was in London, there'd be hardly anybody about. There weren't sort of like, there wasn't traffic, there weren't people walking about, everywhere was always empty. So you had to try and get the crowds out of the way, which was sometimes pretty difficult.
Do you have any other Avengers memories that you would like to add for this evening, unless that you haven't already done so?
I don't know what kind of thing I would want to tell you. There's just so many, really.
Oh, yeah. So I was just thinking of anything connected to. I was wondering about the relationship with Diana and Patrick, in terms of, compared to say Linda and Patrick. Was it a different sort of chemistry?
I think Patrick and Diana got on really well, and they bounced off each other, and it was really good. When Linda arrived, I think Patrick was suffering from lack of Diana, that she wasn't there. that things had changed. And Linda, I think, didn't really know quite how to fit in.
Yeah.
So I think to begin with, it was all a little bit awkward. And then Patrick decided that he'd wake himself up and try and help her.
Yeah.
Things improved gradually.
Because the sense I get was that Diana was always very happy doing the role of Mrs. Peel, but I suppose just like any classical trained actress, she wanted just to do other things and as much as possible. So she was always happy on the set from your point of view, I take it.
Yeah, she didn't hang around when she wasn't needed. As soon as she'd done what was required, she would go back to her dressing room. But she wasn't difficult to work with at all. I mean, in fact, sometimes we'd have a bit of a laugh because there was one, I can't remember the name of the episode. It'll be in the book because I looked it up. But there was one episode we did where we were in the same costume and we had chairs next to each other. And Diana had a little white dog called Poopy. Right. And we were taking it in turns. Diana would do her bit and she'd come back and she'd say, your turn. And then I'd go and do my bit and come back and say, over to you, And we kept swapping over doing these different bits. And Poopy got totally confused. And I sat down and Poopy jumped on me and went to lick my face and then realised I wasn't the right person. And he looked so shocked. And Diana was behind him just killing herself laughing.
Yes, it sounds, because you were a very good double for Dan, of course. That you looked very similar, and obviously. Well,
and wearing the same costume as well, and same hair. I mean, I suppose he wasn't paying attention. He was just getting so used to being picked up and put down, picked up and put down.
Well, you knew you were doing the job well because obviously animals.
Yes.
So
yes. Well, the one that made me realise that it was going to work was my first day, because I walked onto the set and I walked on and Diana wasn't there. And I didn't know quite what I should do with myself because I wasn't used to film sets or anything. And I sat down thinking, well, sooner or later somebody will tell me what to do. And this man came up to me and said, can I have your autograph? And I thought, he surely can't want my autograph because nobody knows me. And I said, are you sure you want mine? And he said, yes, it'd be a bit of a laugh, won't it? And he gave me a call sheet to sign. So I thought, well, all right then. So I wrote Cyd Child on it. And he looked at it and he was really angry. So I suppose you think that's funny, and stamped off. And I thought, oh, this is all a bit weird here. And then Diana walked on the set with some people with her, wearing the same costume, and went up to where the camera was and was doing what she was doing. And about 10 minutes later, this person came sort of sheepishly back to me and said, I'm sorry, I thought you were Diana Rigg.
Do you remember sort of the first time when somebody actually asked for your signature, as not mistakenly, but for your contribution?
Well, it must have been at one of the, the events, really. It must have been something like the 50th, because I wouldn't be around where people would know who I was.
And do you enjoy going to these events? Do you like that fan connection? Is it nice?
I haven't been to be honest, I haven't been to very many, but it's always been fun.
And it must be nice to be recognised for the work you did. And
yes, yeah.
Especially when it's not something that you would have thought would have happened at that time, because you say it was very much behind the scenes.
Yes, yeah.
That must be very, very indeed. But just got one question to finish off and then wrap up the evening. Ian just wanted to ask, do you remember much about the time when John Bryce was brought back for a couple of episodes at the start of Linda's season before Brian Clemens returned?
It was awful. It was a horrible time. He had this idea that Tara should be like Marilyn Monroe and blonde and bubbly. We got packed off to a hairdresser's to have our hair changed. My hair's got a strong dark pigment in it. I think Linda's must have too. and we were bleached over and over again, and then it still wasn't blonde enough. We had to come back again a few days later, and it killed our hair. Everything about it was not right. The stories weren't right, the action wasn't right, the costumes weren't right, the hair was coming out in the comb. It was just horrible. And the thing is, when you work on something like the Diana Rigg Avengers, you get this feeling of you're working on something that's professional and good, and everybody likes it. And on this, I just had this feeling that this wasn't working. This wasn't right somehow, and I got a little bit depressed about it. It only went on for a couple of weeks, and then I came back into work, and there was Brian Clements and Albert Fennell, and John Bryce had disappeared, and then we were told, well, Brian doesn't like your hair blonde, but you're going to wear dark wigs. So we wore dark wigs until our hair grew out again, and everything started sort of slowly improving, you know, as they sort of got to grips with it and changed things back. I mean, somebody somewhere must have thought that, you know, for having a new girl, maybe they should have a whole new unit to work with, but it wasn't a good idea.
Yes.
And then, of course, we had to pretend that she was carrying wigs with her so that they could use some of the clips. I think the first couple of episodes, I don't think they ever showed. They just took out odd little bits that they could use.
Yeah. Again, it'd be interesting to know if they still existed, really. But I suppose it's like the first Diana Rigg episode that Elizabeth Shepherd did before she was removed.
Yeah.
Interesting to see, but it's such a strange decision to get rid of two, you know, the very successful team that.
Yeah, they were the ones who made it, really.
And I think, well, obviously when we do our new Avengers event, we'll come to it, but I think they experience similar issues with that not being valued, which is obviously a great issue. But obviously the Linda Forson season really worked out, I think, very, very well. And I think some of the best episodes of the entire show were actually Linda Forson episodes. So I think it's a really, really good series. Well, I think we should leave it there, Cyd. So thank you very much for joining us for this wonderful.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
And I just want to say on behalf of everybody watching that we've all really enjoyed having you watch this wonderful episode with us and sharing all your wonderful memories. So if anybody wants to say any thank yous or anything, I'll just quickly read them out before we go. So Darren and Ruth have said, thank you both. This was awesome. Gary says, thank you for a really interesting talk. I'm sure we'll probably get some more thank yous and emails, and obviously I'll pass.
Well, that's very kind. Thank everybody.
And Laura said, thank you very much. This was fantastic. Well,
oh, good.
Thank you, absolutely brilliant. Some Terry. So I think it was a hit. So that's great. Well, until
next time.
Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll talk again soon. And thanks everybody for joining us this evening. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.